Polls close Tuesday in California's gubernatorial recall election. A total of 46 candidates are looking to unseat Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom. If more than 50% of voters approve the recall, the candidate with the most votes becomes governor. There has only been one successful California recall, and that was in 2003 when actor Arnold Schwarzenegger replaced Governor Gray Davis. To talk more about this, I'd like to bring back Eric Ting. He is the California Issues Editor for the San Francisco Chronicle. Eric, good to have you. So there are 46 candidates on the ballot, including politicians, business people, and entertainers. Tell us, how is that huge pool of contenders affecting the race? And if the recall is successful, is there a floor in terms of how small a percentage of the vote a challenger would need in order to become the next governor of California?
So the interesting thing is that the very large pool of candidates doesn't seem to have that big of an impact on the race as things stand now. In poll after poll, conservative radio host Larry Elder is leading the rest of the field by a very, very wide margin. Polls will show him with anywhere between 25 to 35% of the vote, and then no other candidate on the rest of that bottom of the ballot is getting into the double digits. There is no floor as it relates to how many votes a candidate must get to become governor. You could theoretically have 10 candidates all get 10% of the vote, or maybe one gets 10.1% of the vote, one gets 9.9% of the vote. The person with 10.10% of the vote will become governor. There is no floor, but it's looking like Larry Elder will probably be getting between 20 to 30%, if not more, on the bottom of the ballot, because there are people who will be voting no on the first question and leaving the second question blank, which will actually increase Elder's vote share on that second question.
That's interesting. So if Newsom got 48% of the vote secured on that first question, he loses the governorship, but somebody like Larry Elder, who, if he got only 20%, would then still become governor. California, you guys are fascinating. So tell us, Eric, what are the key issues driving this recall?
This recall started with pandemic restrictions, and it is now ending with pandemic restrictions. We got into this recall after the French Laundry visit, where Newsom visited a restaurant at the time that he was enforcing lockdown and business restrictions tougher than the rest of the nation. That's how this started. What's ending now, especially with the presence of Larry Elder in the race, is Governor Newsom is leaning hard into pro-vaccine mandates issued by the state. Larry Elder has vowed to revoke said vaccine mandates. Polling has indicated that the mandates issued by Newsom are generally popular across the state. So it is a little bit ironic that we started with Newsom getting into this mess over criticism of some pandemic restrictions and mandates, but now he's running on support for other seemingly more popular ones that Elder and the Republican candidates at the bottom of the ballot want to revoke. So it started with the pandemic, it is ending with the pandemic. Homelessness remains an issue, wildfires remains an issue, but the messaging in this final week from the Newsom team and general media coverage, given the Delta variant and COVID's resurgence in the state, it is ending with the pandemic once again.
Eric, I was going to ask you how the governor has been trying to drum up support in the final days of this recall. It sounds like he's really focusing on the pandemic. Do you think that's going to be an effective strategy?
I think that it's going to be effective in the sense that it provides a necessary foil for him. If you look at some of the Delta surges that are happening in other parts of the country, he has gone out of his way to say that the Republican candidates here will take us off of the COVID cliff. It'll turn California into Florida. Never mind that there's a very big difference in vaccination rates between the two states. Some question if it's possible for California to have as large a surge as other states, given our very high vaccination rate here. But I think that from a pure messaging and political standpoint, looking beyond the epidemiology of it, I think it is effective to some regard. And yes, he's been leaning into that. He has an 8-to-1 or 9-to-1 fundraising advantage, and he is using that by having his army of staffers send text messages, knock on doors. His TV ads are everywhere. And he has been very well equipped and has been seemingly effective in juicing Democratic turnout and getting people who were previously apathetic and not paying attention to the recall to mail in their ballots.
It seems like that's particularly true of the Latino community, because the Public Policy Institute of California released a poll showing that 66% of likely Latino voters will not support the recall. Tell us how significant this is.
It's pretty significant because, I mean, we had previous polling, I think, in the summer that showed that the Latino community was about 50-50 split. So to see a number as striking as 66-27 is a really large and favorable result for the governor. But I will note that while the margins might be good, there are legitimate questions about Latino turnout generally. As it was on Thursday or Wednesday of last week, the latest results from the California Secretary of State's Office on Return Ballots by county, who's mailing in their ballots. The three counties in California that have the highest Hispanic populations, so Imperial, Tulare, and San Benito, all had return ballot rates lower than the rest of the state average. Latinos typically are probably going to have lower turnout in this race, but Latinos as a bloc might be shifting right. I mean, even I mentioned Imperial County previously. In the 2020 presidential election, that county, which is about 80% Latino, still voted for Joe Biden, but by a smaller margin than it voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. The turnout is going to matter, and then the actual margins. Is it, instead of being a Democrat, having a Democrat winning that population by 25 percentage points as opposed to 20, can make a big difference at the margins when you look at overall turnout with other groups.
So, Eric, before I let you go, obviously this has been very interesting just in terms of the political drama of it. But as I understand, political leaders all across the country are watching this election really closely. Tell us why that is.
They're watching it closely because some people believe that this will provide a clue into 2022, possibly. I remember that this happened in 2017 and 2018, all the various special elections for Congress. Everyone was reading into a lot of those to see what it might mean for the midterms. I think some people want to know if the Democratic base is going to be apathetic in a similar way that they became quite apathetic in 2009 and 2010, which led to the Republicans taking back the House then. I think that there is some fear about a potential Republican governor having the power of a Senate appointment should something happen to Senator Dianne Feinstein in a 50-50 Senate, where someone could possibly control the balance of the Senate by appointing a Feinstein successor. But I think that at the end of the day, this is a local election. All politics are local, and the issues driving this recall, pandemic restrictions specific to California, wildfires, homelessness, it is the California-specific issues that are dominating the day here, even though the Newsom campaign has worked to nationalize it, and again, using Larry Elder and other conservatives as a foil and tying them to red state governors like Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott. But it's still California-specific policy at the end of the day that I think people will be voting on here.
All right, Eric Ting, thank you.
Thanks for having me.